The night shift was always the quietest, yet somehow that silence had its own kind of weight. Inside the vast marble lobby of the corporate tower, the sound of the mop gliding across the floor echoed faintly like whispers in a cathedral. At 2 a.m., when the city outside had surrendered to sleep, a lone woman moved from corner to corner. Her posture weary, her motions careful, her soul burdened. Her name was Emily Carter, and the janitor's uniform she wore was faded at the elbows, much like the dreams she once carried when life was gentler. Tonight, she was cleaning more slowly than usual, not out of laziness, but because every movement felt heavier. Her hands trembled as she wrung out the mop, and though the floor sparkled beneath the fluorescent lights, her eyes glistened for a very different reason. A single tear slipped down her cheek, tracing the same path it had taken so many nights before. Falling onto her scarred hands, the hands that had once held love, loss, and the will to survive. If you believe in kindness, compassion, and second chances, take a moment to like, comment, share, and subscribe to this channel. Because sometimes, one act of kindness can change an entire life. Emily had started this job just 2 months ago after life had stripped away everything she thought she'd built securely. She'd once been a preschool teacher, a woman who spent her mornings with laughter, crayons, and little hands clutching hers. But when her husband, Mark, died in a car crash 2 years ago, the world stopped making sense. His death left not only a hollow in her heart, but also a mountain of debt from his medical bills. Her small apartment in the suburbs was repossessed, her savings disappeared, and even her in-laws, who once adored her, quietly drifted away. Her only child, Lily, was 5 then. Too young to understand why Mommy cried so much, too innocent to notice the eviction notices on their door. When Emily could no longer afford daycare, she started bringing Lily to her night shifts. The little girl would sleep in a corner of the cleaning supply room wrapped in her mother's old cardigan, her tiny face peaceful while Emily worked until dawn. Emily's supervisor didn't know, and she couldn't afford for him to find out. Every time she heard footsteps echo through the halls, her heart pounded in fear, not of danger, but of being caught and losing the only income she had left. That night, though, fate decided to intervene. The building wasn't supposed to have anyone else in it after midnight, but someone had stayed late. A man sitting in the far corner office, his light still burning against the darkness. He was Daniel Brooks, a project manager known for his discipline and quiet intensity. At 34, Daniel was a single dad too, though few people at the office knew his full story. His wife had walked out 3 years ago, leaving him to raise their son, Evan, alone. To everyone else, Daniel seemed like the man who had it all together. Clean suits, polished shoes, and a reputation for never missing a deadline. But behind that calm exterior lived a man stretched thin between parenthood and survival. He had been reviewing reports for an upcoming presentation when he first noticed the faint sound of sobbing. It wasn't loud, but it was raw enough to cut through the silence of the office like a quiet plea for help. Curious, Daniel stood up, loosened his tie, and stepped out into the hall. The lobby lights flickered gently, and there she was, Emily, kneeling near the base of the staircase, her gloved hands pressed to her face, shoulders trembling. For a moment, Daniel hesitated. People cried in private for reasons deeper than words. But when he saw how she quickly wiped her tears, forced a faint smile, and went back to scrubbing the marble floor as though nothing had happened, something in him stirred. He noticed the small cuts on her hands, the exhaustion in her movements, and the haunting quietness around her. Emily didn't notice him at first. She was focused on polishing a section of the floor where her own reflection stared back at her, reminding her of who she used to be. But when she looked up, startled by a soft voice asking if she was okay, her heart skipped. Standing a few feet away was a man in rolled-up sleeves, holding a steaming cup of coffee in each hand. Daniel had walked to the break room, poured 2 cups, and returned without a word. He offered one to her, not as a boss or a stranger, but simply as a human being. She hesitated, afraid to accept kindness she didn't deserve, but his quiet insistence left no space for pride. She took it, her hands trembling slightly. The warmth seeped through her palms like mercy. He didn't ask about her tears. He didn't pry. He simply said, "Sometimes working alone feels heavier than the work itself." That simple line, gentle and honest, broke the dam she'd been holding back for months. Emily's tears flowed silently, her shoulders shaking as she whispered apologies for crying. Daniel just sat beside her on the marble floor, sipping his coffee, watching the lights of the city shimmer through the glass walls. That night, they didn't exchange much, but the quiet understanding between two people who had known loss and exhaustion was enough. Before leaving, Daniel placed a business card beside her bucket. "If you ever need extra hours or help with something, I'm around." Over the next few weeks, their paths crossed more often. Sometimes he'd stay late, claiming to finish reports, but really, he was checking to make sure the janitor with the tired eyes was okay. Emily would smile faintly, embarrassed but grateful. One night, when her mop handle snapped in half, Daniel came down with a toolkit and fixed it himself. Another night, when he noticed a small figure sleeping under her jacket in the supply closet, he realized the truth. She'd been bringing her daughter to work. He didn't report it. He didn't even mention it right away. Instead, he quietly arranged for a blanket and a soft cushion to appear in that room the next night. Emily found them and froze, tears welling in her eyes. She looked around but saw no one. Only later, when Daniel walked by and gave her a small nod, did she understand it was him. Weeks turned into months, and the building that once echoed with loneliness began to feel like a fragile connection point between two broken souls. Daniel started bringing his son, Evan, to the office sometimes, especially when he couldn't find a sitter. The first time Evan met Lily, they were both shy but quickly bonded over crayons and paper Daniel kept in his drawer. It became their small secret. The janitor's daughter and the manager's son drawing pictures together in the middle of the night while their parents worked quietly nearby. One winter evening, the city was hit by an unexpected storm. Emily arrived late, soaked to the bone, carrying Lily wrapped in a blanket. Her eyes looked even more tired than usual. Daniel found her struggling to clean the entrance while shivering uncontrollably. Without a word, he guided her to the office kitchen, gave her a dry towel and told her to sit. He made her tea, handed her one of his spare sweaters, and went to check on Lily, who was asleep on the couch in his office. That night, Daniel saw something that broke his heart. A mother's silent endurance. Her hands, still red and raw from the cold, were trembling as she tried to hide them under the table. He reached out, gently turned her palm upward, and saw the faint scars and tears on her skin. They weren't fresh. They were the marks of endless scrubbing, washing, and working through exhaustion. For a long time, they sat there in silence, the air heavy with unspoken emotions. Emily finally whispered, "I used to hold storybooks with these hands. Now I just hold mops." Daniel's voice softened. "And yet, they're the same hands that hold your daughter's world together." That sentence, so simple, so true, made Emily cry harder than she had in months. The next morning, Daniel went to his supervisor and made a bold request. He proposed creating a daytime assistant position to help with office maintenance and organization. When asked who he had in mind, he simply said, "Someone who already takes care of this place better than any of us." Within a week, Emily was offered a full-time position, with benefits and a stable schedule. It wasn't charity. It was recognition. Emily couldn't stop crying when she got the news. For the first time in years, she didn't have to choose between sleep and survival. She could be there for Lily during the day, and she could afford a small apartment where they both could rest without fear. When she thanked Daniel, he simply said, "Just promise me you'll never hide your tears again." They mean you're still fighting months later as spring arrived. The lobby once again shone under her care. But this time, she wasn't cleaning in silence. Her laughter echoed softly as Lily ran to her after school, her small backpack bouncing. Daniel often stopped by with Evan, sharing brief smiles that said more than words could. It wasn't romance, not yet. It was something purer. Two people healing in each other's quiet company. One Friday afternoon, Emily placed her mop aside, looked at her hands, and smiled. They still bore the scars of hardship, but now they also carried the touch of hope. Daniel walked in with 2 coffees, just like that first night. She accepted one with a grateful nod. Their eyes met. No need for explanations. Sometimes the most beautiful connections grow from moments of shared pain. As the sun dipped beyond the glass windows, Emily whispered a small prayer of thanks for second chances, for unexpected kindness, and for the courage to keep moving forward. If this story touched your heart, please like, comment, share, and subscribe to help spread stories of compassion and hope.